Hello everyone, I'm the International Master Axel Delorme. I'm 26 years old. I became an International Master in 2008 and now I'm trying to be a Grandmaster. I already have the rating as I have 25-16 and I'm trying to make my life norm to be a GM. Regarding my experience as a chess trainer, I started quite soon at the age of 17, 18, coaching the kids, the most promising kids of my club in Sautron, it's the west of France. Today I'm playing for the Clichy team, which is one of the best teams here. Then after I went abroad for my studies in Italy and Spain and had a chance to continue teaching chess, and that was really a great opportunity. So regarding my approach of teaching, I've noticed in these years that beginners should be more cautious about development in openings and king safety. Everyone knows that things, but sometimes we just forget it. And the second thing I'm concerned about in this method is engine evaluation. I see too many people care too much about computer evaluation and studying too much with engines. Of course, engine is a fantastic tool for best chess player for us sometimes because it gives us right away an evaluation of the position, but that's not like this. We understand general principle of chess. So in this method, I'll try not to put on the engine and try to focus on the most principal things you have to know in chess. So I will show you a lot of games of champions from the past and champions from today. So the method will be 15 hours of lessons in the 12 chapters. So I will talk about every part of the game, every area. So we're usually talking about openings, and I will give you some important advices in opening, also in the middle game, and of course in the end game. I will also talk about tactics and how to study with, let's say, the studies and to combine tactics and studies. I think one very important thing I have to say is accessible to everyone, from the beginner to the club player. So if you have any question, any suggestion, you can contact me and I'll be happy to answer you. See you soon. So in the first chapter, I decided to talk about the importance of development and king safety in the opening. We all know that is something very important, but sometimes we tend to forget it. And I will show you three very interesting games played by Paul Morphy, which was best player at the end of the 19th century. He was American. So the first game we are going to look at is a game very famous called the Opera's game. Second one is a game where he faces with black pieces King's Gambit, and he plays with a lot of energy in the opening and finally crushes his opponent. And the third game, he faces a gambit, the Evans Gambit, and once again put the king in a safe place, develop his pieces efficiently, and wins a very good game. Hi ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my method. This is chapter 1, part 1. So in this chapter
as I already told you, I will try to give you advices on opening, what you should keep in mind when starting the game. We will see today a game of Morphy, and we will continue in the second and third video to take a look at the guy who was considered in 1850 as the best player in the world. Okay, so in this game we are in 1858. So as you probably already know, Morphy was American, and in 58 he comes to Europe, and the first step is in Paris. So for Paris it's a huge attraction, having the best player in the world, and Morphy is invited to go to the opera, and during the opera he will play a game that is now one of the famous game of chess history. This game was played against two members of French aristocracy. These guys are Isolde and Brunswick, and they were playing together with black pieces. So, okay, let's start with the game. Morphy opens with one e4. So Morphy was a very aggressive player. He'd like to attack, to have the initiative, and to pose problems to the opponent at very early stage of the game. This e4 is considered to be one of the most powerful first move of the game. So e4, e5 from black. This is a symmetrical response that we are seeing very often at when beginner play. But those two guys with black are not beginners at all. So e4, e5, knight f3, intending to put some pressure on the e5 pawn. So if black passes, for example, white could already catch this pawn. So black has to do something. Usually we play knight to c6 in order to capture back in case of knight e5. We will take a look at those positions in chapter number 3. And black here chooses to play d6. D6 like defending the pawn if knight takes e5, now d takes e5. The advantage of this move is now the bishop can, the light squared bishop of black can go out with, for example, bishop g4, bishop d7. And I would say that the drawback is black is not developing his pieces. One thing very important in the opening, in the early stage of the game, is to develop your pieces. Develop your pieces toward the center. This is very important. So d6, this is known as the Philidor opening. Philidor, as you maybe already know, was one of the best players in the 18th century. He is the one who started to create some theory on the game, make some studies, and publish some books too. d6, and now Morphy plays d4, taking the center. Very important to take the center, because now your bishop can freely go on very important squares like c4 or g5. Okay, here black has different choices. The most natural would be to take on d4. But after knight takes d4, we see that white has very centralized knight, and we'll continue playing, for example, knight c3, bishop e2, and castle. This is short castle, but white could also think about playing long castle. For example, knight f6, knight c3, bishop e7, bishop f4 or bishop g5, and then queen d2 and long castle. This is a possibility too. There are some other possibility, for example, knight d7, trying to protect the e5 pawn who is hanging, and now knight d7, white can play this move, bishop to c4, and this is quite annoying for black, because, for example, if knight f6, we can already play knight g5 and attacking twice the f7 pawn. I will tell you something about this f7 pawn. You have to be careful always, because this f7 pawn is very often the weak point of black. I'm always telling my students and the kids to be very, very careful in the opening, because this guy is the only one who is not protected by any piece except the king, of course. On the starting position, I mean. For example, this one is protected by bishop and queen, this one bishop and queen, bishop, rook, but this one is really fragile. You should not even move it on the early stage of the game. Okay, so we talk about knight d7, which I think is not the best. Knight f6 is possible too, letting the e5 pawn, but if d takes e5, no, knight takes e4, taking back the pawn. This is a possibility. And black here will play quite a strange move, bishop to g4, pinning the knight, which means if this knight goes somewhere else, for example, e5, no, the queen will be captured. So white cannot move this knight. Okay, the idea of this move is if white takes e5. Of course, black cannot take back, because otherwise queen takes d8, king takes d8, and knight takes e5. With a pawn up, and the black king will stay in the center. So here, black's idea is to play bishop take f3 and queen takes f3 in order to take back this pawn and to get a symmetrical pawn structure. There were also other possibilities here. It was possible to play knight c6 or knight d7, which are both very interesting moves. Because after knight c6, black is offering a pawn, and if e takes d6, bishop takes d6. And now black is ahead in development, so he has already 3 pieces out, while white only has the knight out. So this is quite interesting. The same for knight d7. And black could also think about playing a long castle plan. For example, queen e7 and long castle, as you see on the board. So bishop takes f3, and here also white could take with the pawn, you know. So in general, having this double pawn is not the best thing you could dream of. because at some point they will be quite locked on the same file. And one other thing, when you have like this double pawn on the king side, one day if you castle, this your king on the g file will be quite weak. But the point behind this move g takes f3 is to play after d e5, queen takes d8, king takes, and now f4 in order to exchange this double pawn and try to play on the weakness of the black king. And also with the pair of bishops. We will talk a lot about pair of bishops in my method. When you have the bishops, you should try to open up the position, because if the position is closed, locked on the center, the bishop will not be able to play efficiently. So this was Steinnitz's suggestion. Steinitz was one of the best players of the time, but we will see that he has quite different approach of the game. He is more strategical, trying to play on weaknesses of the opponent. He doesn't fear endgames, while Murphy was more a direct player. He liked to attack early. So f4, now for example knight f6, fe5, knight e4, and bishop g2. And now we can see that this bishop is very strong on the long diagonal, attacking the e4 knight and also attacking this weak pawn on b7. Knight c5, b4, chasing out the knight in order to take the b7 pawn, and now knight e6, bishop takes b7. So queen f3, the move of Murphy, d5, and now bishop c4. And there is a huge weakness on f7. Here white is already better thanks to this bishop on c4. So knight f6, be always careful when your opponent put the queen on f3 or on h5 and the bishop on c4. Knight f6, and here you could continue the development. For example, knight c3 is a possibility, bishop g5 or castle. But here Murphy found a very beautiful idea. It's queen b3, attacking simultaneously the b7 and f7 pawn. Usually we tell the beginners not to move the same piece a lot of time in the opening. You should try to make all your pieces play. But here he is already winning some material, because if you attack 2 pawns at the same time, your opponent will not be able to play twice. So queen b3, this is a priority, the f7 pawn. So black decides to play queen e7, and now in case of bishop takes f7, queen takes. We could think that queen b7 here is good in order to capture the rook on a8. But here black has a very interesting idea. He plays bishop c5. And if we take the rook, no castle, and it becomes quite messy. We are an exchange up. So an exchange means we took a rook and lost a bishop or knight. Exchange is basically a rook against a bishop or knight. So here that's quite unclear. One, because our queen is trapped, and we are all our pieces on the first rank. So a lot of threat here for black. Queen c8 is also possible, but queen c8, king e7, queen takes h8, and now bishop takes f2. And the position is not clear at all. White is taking some material, but position is messy. So he prefers here to play knight c3. Of course, queen b7 was possible here, but black could exchange the queens. And this leads to an endgame where white has a pawn up, probably much better, but Morphy wanted to keep the queens and win as quickly as possible. He wanted to enjoy the opera. So he played knight c3. Knight c3, now c6, in order to impede a knight from coming to d5, in order to protect the b7 pawn with the queen. c6, and now he continues to develop the pieces, playing bishop g5 and also pinning this knight on f6. And here it's quite difficult for black to develop the pieces. This guy cannot go to d7 because of the b7 pawn hanging, and this one cannot go out because of the queen. So black tries b5 move in order to chase the bishop away, and now play move like queen b4. In that position, black should probably be slightly worse, but still can play a normal game. And here the position becomes very interesting. Morphy decides to play knight takes b5, c takes b5, and bishop takes b5. So he took 2 pawns for a knight. So normally, if we made calculations, we took 2 pawns and lost 3. So we are 1 pawn down. But here it is very important to understand that black king stayed in the center. So we have to make something very quick and attack it before the king castles. So bishop takes b5, knight d7 is almost the same move, the only move, sorry. King d8, and now we can take on f6, and if g takes f6, queen d5 check, eating the rook. So knight b d7, and now Morphy wants to castle. To castle, he wants also to bring the rooks into play. So of course short castle was possible, but playing long castle, you put your king on a safe place, and also your rook is coming into play. And here the threat is already to take on d7, because if white takes on d7, there will be no good way of capturing back. Because if you capture back with the knight, for example, you're just losing the queen with the bishop. So here black plays rook d8 in order to defend this guy one more time. So very interesting position. White is a piece down for 2 pawns. And every single piece, almost every single piece is playing. One piece still is not playing, so Morphy has to find a way to make it play. Rook d2, for example, was a classical way of doubling up the rooks on the d file, but he considered it too slow. For example, if rook d2, black can play queen b4, offering the trade of the queens, And okay, this is not clear, probably in white's advantage, but still black can defend this position. So here he finds the really beautiful move, rook takes d7. The only option for black is to take with the rook, because if knight takes, bishop takes queen. And now this piece is coming into play after rook d1. Now white is rook down, but he will take the material back. Rook d1, queen e6, well, if knight e4, bishop takes e7, of course. So a very difficult position for black. With black, they decide to offer the exchange of queens. So this is already a very important position. If we exchange queen in this position, white is still better. But when you are down in material, you should not exchange the pieces. Here you have to try at least to keep the queens on the board. And this move offers the possibility to white to make beautiful combinations which stays in the history of chess. So bishop takes d7 with check on the king. Only move is to take with the knight. If queen takes d7, for example, queen b8, and then we are just going to take the queen on d7. Knight takes d7, and now we have the beautiful combination, queen b8, sacrificing the queen, knight takes b8, only move, and now rook to d8, checkmate. And white is a queen and a knight down, but there is just checkmate on the board. Very beautiful combination. So what can we try to remember from this game? What does this game is teaching us? The first thing is try to develop your pieces as fast as possible, as quickly as possible in the opening. Second thing is try not to exchange your light square bishop, because after exchanging your light square bishop, you will be weak on the b7 pawn, and you will also be weak on the f7 pawn, which is very important and vulnerable point of your position in the beginning of the game. Okay, so I hope you enjoy the game, and we'll see for the second part of this first chapter, still always with the game of Morphy.